I'm Sophia Miller, 29 years old, and the moment my mom took her last breath, my dad threw me out of the house like I was nothing more than trash. But the $33 million surprise she left completely changed my life, and I need to tell you this story because it's eating me alive, keeping it inside. Before we start, please hit that subscribe button and comment where you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you, especially if you've ever felt betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you. You know, growing up, I thought we were the perfect family. From the outside, we looked like we had everything: the beautiful house in Connecticut, the expensive cars, the family vacations that looked amazing on social media. My dad, Richard Miller, was this successful investment banker who commanded respect wherever he went. People looked up to him, called him brilliant, invited him to their country clubs. And my mom, Sarah, she was this gentle soul who seemed to float through life with such grace and warmth. But behind closed doors, something was always off. I could feel it in the way my dad's jaw would tighten when mom would laugh too loudly at dinner parties. I could see it in the way he'd count the money in her purse when she came home from shopping, questioning every single purchase like she was a criminal. He controlled everything: what we ate, where we went, who we talked to, even what books I could read. My mom tried to shield me from it, but I wasn't blind. I watched her flinch when he raised his voice. I saw her hands shake when she had to ask him for money to buy groceries. She'd whisper to me late at night that everything would be okay, that she was working on something, but I never understood what she meant. I just thought she was trying to comfort a scared kid. I had dreams back then, you know? I wanted to be a veterinarian, maybe open my own practice someday, but every time I brought it up, my dad would shut it down. "Women don't need careers," he'd say, his voice cold and dismissive. "Your job is to find a good husband and support him." Mom would give me these looks across the dinner table, these sad, knowing looks that said she understood. But she never fought him on it. At least, not where I could see. When I turned 25, I was still living at home because Dad refused to help me move out unless I was getting married. He said it was a waste of money, that I'd just end up back home anyway because women couldn't handle being independent. The rage I felt hearing those words, it still burns in my chest thinking about it. But Mom would squeeze my hand under the table and whisper, "Be patient, sweetheart. Trust me." Then Mom got sick. It started with these headaches that wouldn't go away, then the dizziness, then the doctor's visits that Dad insisted on controlling completely. He chose her doctors, sat in on every appointment, made all the decisions about her treatment. And when they diagnosed her with stage 4 brain cancer, he didn't even let her tell me herself. I found out because I overheard him on a phone call with his lawyer. The next 8 months were pure hell. Watching my beautiful, vibrant mother waste away, while my father turned into an even bigger monster, was like living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. He hired nurses, but only ones who reported directly to him. He monitored her phone calls, read her mail, even limited who could visit her. When I tried to spend time with her alone, he'd find excuses to interrupt us or send me on pointless errands. But Mom was clever, even while she was dying. She'd slip me notes when Dad wasn't looking, little pieces of paper with random numbers and letters that didn't make sense to me at the time. She'd whisper things like, "Remember the garden shed combination?" Or, "The safety deposit box key is where we used to hide Christmas presents." I thought it was the medication making her confused, so I just played along, nodding and telling her I understood when I really didn't. Make sure you're subscribed, because this story gets so much darker, and I need people to hear what happened next. The night Mom died, I was holding her hand in that sterile hospital room. Dad had stepped out to make important calls, which I now know were calls to his lawyer and the moving company he'd already hired. Her last words to me were, "Check the music box, baby. Everything you need is in the music box." Then she was gone, and my world shattered into a million pieces. I was sobbing, barely able to breathe, when Dad walked back in. He didn't comfort me. He didn't cry. He didn't even look sad. He just stood there for exactly 30 seconds, then said, "Time to go. The funeral home is coming for her." But it wasn't the funeral home he was talking about. When we got home, there was a moving truck in our driveway and 2 men loading boxes into it. My boxes. Everything I owned was being thrown into this truck like garbage, and Dad was standing there directing them like it was completely normal. "What's happening?" I screamed at him, my voice hoarse from crying. "What are you doing with my stuff?" He turned to me with this cold smile that I'll never forget as long as I live. "Your mother is dead, which means you have no reason to be here anymore. This is my house, bought with my money, and I want you gone. Tonight." The cruelty in his voice, the satisfaction he was getting from my pain. It was like he'd been waiting for this moment for years. Maybe he had been. Maybe Mom's death was just the excuse he needed to finally get rid of the daughter he'd never wanted. But where am I supposed to go? I begged him, hating how pathetic I sounded. I don't have any money, I don't have anywhere to live. Not my problem, he said, lighting a cigarette like this was all just a minor inconvenience to him. You're 29 years old, figure it out. I ended up in a motel that night, paying for it with the $200 I had in my checking account. I sat on that disgusting bedspread surrounded by garbage bags full of my life and cried until I couldn't cry anymore. I felt so abandoned, so completely alone in the world. The two people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. One was dead, and the other had thrown me away like I was nothing. But then I remembered Mom's last words about the music box. It was this little wooden box she'd kept on her dresser for as long as I could remember. When I was little, she'd let me wind it up and listen to the tiny ballerina dance to Für Elise. I'd managed to grab it when the movers were loading my stuff, more out of sentiment than anything else. Inside the music box, hidden under the velvet lining, was a key and a piece of paper with an address. The address was for a bank downtown, and the key changed everything. Comment below where you're watching from. I want to know I'm not alone in this world. The next morning, I took the bus to that bank, my hands shaking as I walked up to the safety deposit box department. The woman behind the counter looked at me skeptically when I showed her the key, probably because I looked like I'd been sleeping in my car, which I basically had been. But the key worked, and what I found in that safety deposit box made me understand that my mother had been planning for this moment for years. There were documents, so many documents, legal papers, bank statements, investment records, and a letter addressed to me in my mother's handwriting. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold it steady enough to read it. My darling Sophia, it began, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and your father has shown his true colors. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you from his cruelty while I was alive, but I hope what I'm leaving you will give you the power to protect yourself now. The letter went on to explain everything. How she'd been secretly documenting my father's financial abuse for years, how she'd been moving money into accounts he didn't know about, how she'd been building a case against him that would destroy him if he ever tried to hurt me. But the biggest shock was still coming. You see, my father's investment firm, the one that made him so rich and powerful, wasn't really his. It belonged to my mother's family, inherited from her father when she was just 18. She'd let Dad run it, let him take credit for building it, because she loved him and wanted to support his dreams. But legally, she owned 80% of Miller Financial Group, and now I owned it. $33 million. That's what the company was worth, and most of it was now mine. All those years of Dad telling me I was worthless, that I'd never amount to anything, that women couldn't handle business. And I was about to become his boss. But Mom wasn't done. She'd also documented every instance of financial abuse, every time he'd controlled her money, every cruel thing he'd said about women and their capabilities. She'd recorded phone calls, saved emails, even had photos of the bruises he'd left on her arms when he'd grabbed her too roughly. Use this to get justice, the letter continued, but more importantly, use it to build the life you deserve. You are so much stronger than you know, my beautiful girl, and you don't need anyone's permission to be amazing. I sat in that little room, surrounded by the evidence of my mother's love and foresight, and for the first time since she died, I felt like I could breathe again. The pain was still there. It will always be there. But it was mixed with something else now, something that felt like power. The lawyer my mother had hired, Amanda Chen, was waiting for my call. She'd been Mom's secret ally for 3 years, helping her build this fortress of legal protection around me. When I called her from the bank parking lot, she laughed with genuine joy. Your mother was one of the smartest women I've ever met, Amanda told me. She knew this day would come, and she made sure you'd be ready for it. Are you ready to take back what's yours? Please hit subscribe if you want to hear how I made my father pay for everything he did to us. Walking into Miller Financial Group the next Monday morning felt like stepping into a dream. The same security guard who'd seen me grow up smiled and waved, not knowing that the scared little girl he remembered was now his ultimate boss. I took the elevator to the top floor where my father's corner office overlooked the entire city. His secretary, Mrs. Patterson, looked confused when I asked to see him. I'm sorry, dear, she said kindly, but Mr. Miller is in a very important meeting. Perhaps you could come back another time? Tell him his daughter is here with Amanda Chen from Chen & Associates, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Tell him it's about his wife's estate. The color drained from Mrs. Patterson's face, and I knew Dad had probably told everyone that I was unstable, maybe even dangerous. He'd always been good at controlling narratives. When we walked into his office, Dad was sitting behind his massive mahogany desk like a king on his throne. He barely looked up from his computer. "I thought I made it clear you weren't welcome here," he said coldly. "Security." "Actually, Mr. Miller," Amanda said, opening her briefcase, "you'll want to hear this. I represent the estate of Sarah Miller, and we have some papers for you to review." The look of confusion on his face was priceless. He still thought he held all the power, still believed he could intimidate and control everyone around him. But when Amanda started reading from the legal documents, when the truth about who really owned his precious company started sinking in, I watched 29 years of his lies crumble in real time. "That's impossible," he sputtered, his face turning red. "I built this company from nothing. Sarah was just my wife. She didn't understand business." "Actually," I said, standing up and walking around to his side of the desk, "she understood it better than you ever did. She understood that she was letting you play with her family's company, and now it's time for you to stop playing." The rage in his eyes was terrifying, but I wasn't afraid anymore. Not with Amanda there, not with the law on my side, not with my mother's love protecting me from beyond the grave. "You can't do this," he hissed. "I won't let you." "You don't have a choice," Amanda replied calmly. "Mrs. Miller is now the majority owner of Miller Financial Group. You work for her now, Mr. Miller. And frankly, given the evidence we have of your financial misconduct and abuse, you're lucky she's not pressing criminal charges." The next few hours were a blur of legal proceedings, shocked employees, and phone calls to board members who had to be informed about the change in ownership. Dad tried to fight it, tried to claim the documents were forged, tried to paint me as unstable and vindictive. But Mom had been too thorough, too careful. Every piece of evidence was ironclad. By the end of the day, Richard Miller was no longer the CEO of Miller Financial Group. The board voted unanimously to install me as the interim president while we searched for a permanent replacement. Dad was offered a position as a junior consultant, reporting to me. He quit on the spot. "Drop a comment with your location. I love seeing where my story is reaching people around the world." The weeks that followed were incredible and terrifying at the same time. I was learning to run a multi-million-dollar company while also grieving my mother and dealing with the trauma of everything Dad had put us through. Some days I felt completely overwhelmed, like I was drowning in responsibilities I'd never asked for. But then I'd remember Mom's words about being stronger than I knew, and I'd find the courage to keep going. I hired the best consultants money could buy to teach me about financial management, investment strategies, and corporate leadership. I surrounded myself with people who believed in me, who saw past the scared girl my father had tried to keep me as. The company not only survived the transition, it thrived. Within 6 months, we'd increased our client base by 30% and improved our profit margins significantly. Turns out, when you run a business with honesty and integrity instead of fear and manipulation, people notice. But the best part was using my new platform to help other women who'd been in my situation. I started a foundation in my mother's name that provides financial assistance and legal support to women escaping controlling relationships. We help them get back on their feet, pursue their dreams, and build lives they never thought possible. As for my father, I heard through the grapevine that he'd moved to Florida and was working as a financial advisor at a small firm. No more corner office, no more country club membership, no more power to hurt people who depended on him. He'd tried to contact me a few times, probably hoping to reconcile now that I had money and influence, but I blocked his number. Some betrayals are too deep to forgive. I think about my mom every day. I wish she could see what I've become, what I've built with the gift she left me. I wish she could see the confidence in my eyes now, the way I speak up in meetings and make decisions without second-guessing myself. I wish she could see that all those years of whispering, "Be patient, trust me," had led to this moment where I finally understand my own worth. The pain of losing her will never go away. The anger at my father for stealing so many years of happiness from both of us burns just as hot now as it did that night in the motel. But I've learned that you can carry pain and power at the same time. You can honor your grief while still building something beautiful from the ashes. 6 months after taking over the company, I finally felt ready to pursue my original dream of becoming a veterinarian. I enrolled in night classes while running Miller Financial Group during the day. It's exhausting, but it's my exhausting, you know? Every late night studying anatomy or struggling through organic chemistry is a choice I made for myself, not something forced on me by someone who thought I was too weak or stupid to succeed. The hardest part has been learning to trust people again. When the person who was supposed to protect you betrays you so completely, it leaves scars that don't heal easily. I find myself questioning everyone's motives, wondering if the people around me actually care about me or just see dollar signs. Therapy has helped, but it's an ongoing process. If you're watching this and you're stuck in a situation where someone is controlling your life, making you feel small and worthless, please know that there is hope. Maybe you don't have a secret inheritance waiting for you, but you have something even more powerful. You have the ability to make choices that honor your own worth. It might take time, it might be scary, but you can build a life that belongs to you. Make sure to subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Your support means everything to me. Last month, I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I went back to the house where I grew up, the house Dad threw me out of that terrible night. It's for sale now. Apparently, he couldn't afford the payments without Mom's money supporting his lifestyle. I walked through those rooms where I'd spent so many years feeling trapped and powerless, and instead of the fear I expected, I felt nothing. It was just a house. The power it had held over me was gone, broken the moment I realized my worth wasn't determined by what anyone else thought of me. I bought it. Not because I planned to live there, but because I wanted to turn it into a safe house for women and children escaping domestic violence. I wanted to take this place that had been a prison for my mother and me and transform it into a sanctuary where other people can start healing and rebuilding their lives. The day we opened the Sarah Miller house, I stood in what used to be Dad's study and read a letter from one of our first residents. She was a young woman named Maria who'd escaped an abusive relationship with her two small children. She wrote about how having a safe place to stay had given her the time and space she needed to find her strength again, to remember who she was, beyond the fear and pain. "You saved my life," her letter said. "But more than that, you helped me save myself." That's when I knew Mom's plan had worked exactly as she'd intended. She didn't just leave me money, she left me purpose. She left me the power to turn our pain into something that could help others heal. She left me the courage to become the woman she'd always believed I could be. I'm 30 now, and my life looks nothing like what I thought it would. I run a successful financial firm, I'm in my second year of veterinary school, and I have a team of people who work with me to help women escape the kind of control my father used to exercise over us. Some days I'm exhausted, some days I'm overwhelmed, but I'm never powerless anymore. The $33 million was life-changing, yes, but it wasn't really about the money. It was about my mother's love, her foresight, her refusal to let my father's cruelty define my future. She couldn't protect me while she was alive, but she made damn sure she could protect me after she was gone. So to anyone watching this who feels trapped, who feels worthless, who's been told they're nothing without someone else's approval, you are so much more than you know. Sometimes the people who love us most see our strength before we see it ourselves. Sometimes we have to lose everything to realize we had the power to rebuild all along. My dad waited for Mom's last breath to throw me out, thinking that was his moment of ultimate victory. But what he didn't know was that in her final moments, my mother had already ensured his ultimate defeat. Love won, truth won, justice won, and I won. Thank you for listening to my story. Please subscribe, like this video, and comment where you're watching from. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they know. Because sometimes, when everything seems darkest, that's when the light is about to break through. My mom always said that love finds a way. She was right.